Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kid Stories Podcast. I'm Phil Bechtel. Let's get into a shout out. I want to wish a very happy birthday to Shep, who's about to turn 10 years old. Happy birthday, Shep. I hope for your birthday you get a pair of sunglasses that give you laser eyes and a pogo stick that can bounce you up to outer space and an invisible dog you can take to school with you and a big bucket of goofballs. Shep, I think if you were a character in the stories, you'd be a copy wizard. And you would have the power to make copies of anything. You could copy people and plants and animals and gold bars and goofballs. Thanks for listening, Shep. North reached out to me on Spotify and enjoys listening. Siblings Keller and Afton also like the stories. I think if you three were in the stories, you'd be the robot dragon wizards of Silver Island. And you would build robot dragons and then bring them to life with your magic, and they would protect Silver Island from bandits. Thanks for listening, North, Keller, and Afton. Today's episode marks the beginning of a new series. One listener named Cohen and some others asked for more stories about the Space Shipwreck series, and it really got me thinking, and I was inspired, so I started writing, and this new series is titled Return to Arc 19, about some previous inhabitants of Arc 19 returning to the planet to seek revenge on the evil robots there. So I know you all have great ideas for stories. I want to encourage you to start writing those stories. Get those ideas down on paper, even if it's just a picture or two, and share them with me at kidstoriespodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear about them. Today's episode is titled Return to Arc 19, Part 1. The clunky space freighter wobbled through Arc 19's atmosphere, its landing gear slowly extending. Inside, Zara gripped the controls tight. "Approaching drop zone," she announced, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her dark eyes. Finn looked out the view screen. "Hard to believe we're back. It looks so different." "Yeah, that's what happens when robots take over an entire mining colony," Aria muttered, checking her smart rifle for the 10th time. "They don't exactly prioritize landscaping." As the ship descended, the scarred surface of Arc 19 came into view. Once thriving mining complexes now stood silent, half buried in red dust. Zara's eyes darted to a particular cluster of domes. "There," she said softly. "That's where it happened. Where we lost everything. Can you believe we went to kindergarten and first grade down there?" Aria placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll make 'em pay, Zara. That's why we're here." "And don't forget," Finn added, a glint in his eye, "once we've dealt with the bots, this whole planet's ripe for the picking. Tech, minerals, you name it." Zara nodded grimly. "First, we get justice. Then we get rich." The ship touched down near the domed buildings, kicking up a cloud of rust-colored dust. As it settled, Zara activated her high-tech wristpad that did all kinds of cool stuff. A small holographic map projected above her hand. "Remember the plan," she said. "We sneak into the main hub, hack into a terminal, and—" Zara was interrupted by a high-pitched beeping sound. The ship's exterior sensors had identified movement outside. "Please tell me that was you, Finn," Aria whispered, raising her rifle. Finn shook his head, his hand hovering over his drone. "Negative, but the scanner's picking up movement outside. Multiple signatures." Zara's jaw tightened. "They found us already? Not a surprise in this rust bucket of a ship. Check your gear and ready your weapons." As they slung backpacks over their shoulders, they were distracted by a loud thunk. The ship's hull dented inward as something massive struck. "And now they're shooting at us," Aria growled, moving to the airlock. Finn leaned over to look out one of the windows. "That bot threw a rock at us!" The door slid open and they rushed out. Immediately they were confronted by the sight of 3 teacher bots. Once used for after-school tutoring here on the colony, these bots were now holding makeshift weapons and large stones. Years ago, the teacher bots all had a calming yellow glow in their single eye sensor and a calming voice. Now the yellow light was replaced with a flashing red, and the calming voice was a harsh, robotic sound repeating, "Intruder! Intruder! Intruder!" Zara's mind flashed back to her childhood. These same robots, gentle giants, had fascinated her. She even considered some her friends. "Finn, drone! Aria, cover fire!" Zara shouted, her wristband already glowing as she attempted to hack into the nearest robot's systems. Aria's smart rifle whined to life, firing precise bursts at the robot's joints and sensors. Finn's drone zipped into the air, projecting bright flashes of colored lights right in the bots' faces to disorient them. Zara's fingers flew over her wristband's interface, probing for weaknesses in the robot's firewalls. "They've updated their security protocols," she grunted. "This might take a minute." "We don't have a minute," Aria shouted, ducking behind a boulder just as a huge rock thrown by one of the robots shattered against it. Aria popped up from cover, quickly aimed her rifle, and blasted the bot right in its flashing red eye sensor. The lights went out in the bot, and it slumped over. Finn's drone suddenly beeped urgently. "Guys, we got more incoming. Looks like a whole patrol of smaller bots." Zara made a split-second decision. "New plan. Fall back to the ship. We need to find a more defensible position." As they retreated, Zara's remote hack finally broke through. The lead robot stuttered. Its arms flailed wildly and it stumbled to the ground. "Got one!" she yelled triumphantly. They barely made it back to the ship as a swarm of smaller, spider-like robots crested the ridge. Finn slammed the airlock shut behind them. "That was too close," he panted, slumping against the wall. Aria was already at the ship's controls. "Where to now?" Zara pulled up the holographic map again, her eyes scanning for options. "There," she said, pointing to a deep crevice in the surface of Arc 19. "The old emergency bunkers. The tunnels down there might still be open. Let's go." "Hang on," Aria called from the pilot's seat. "This is gonna get bumpy." The ship dove towards the crevice, robots in hot pursuit. The emergency bunkers were long tunnels built as escape routes in the event of floods or other potential disasters there in the mining colony. They were only used at the end of it all, during the robot uprising, when thousands of humans used the tunnels to escape. Aria landed the ship as close to the tunnel opening as she could. The emergency tunnel opening was huge, like a massive concrete doorway. The three looked out from the ship, remembering being chased through these tunnels by wild, out-of-control robots. The opening to the tunnel now was partially blocked by burned-out ships and so many things people tried to escape with, only to be told they had to abandon their personal items on the escape ships due to weight limits. All kinds of personal keepsakes and valuables were in piles here, now covered in dust. "Think we can find a way in there?" Aria asked, squinting at the mess clogging the tunnel opening. Zara was checking the holomaps on her wristpad. "Yeah, I'm sure we can squirrel our way in there, but we should try and hide the ship." "We gotta get a move on then. Those bots we just escaped from are on their way," said Finn. The three scrambled out of the ship and propped up sheet metal and other pieces of scrap laying around to try and cover up their ship and disguise it from the robots. "Luckily, this old ship looks like a pile of junk already," joked Zara. They climbed over the heaps of scrap that filled the entrance to the emergency tunnels. "What do you think those teacher bots were doing outside the perimeter of the colony?" Finn wondered. "They were probably out there running patrols or something," said Aria. "But I want to know about those spider bot things that came after us. Those weren't here before." "Yeah, right? Maybe something new? Maybe the evil bots had been creating new bots or something?" Zara suggested. The three quietly reached the other side of the debris and flipped on their shoulder lights. This main escape tunnel was big enough to fit their ship in. The emergency lights that ran all along the ceiling were faded and flickering. Beyond the debris at the mouth of the tunnel, it was mostly empty. There were broken robots and random things people had dropped in their escape so many years ago. But it was clear that this space wasn't used by the robots anymore. Zara tapped on her holomap. "Looks like we've got a long hike down these tunnels until we reach the main hub." She turned to see Aria looking down at a toy doll in her hand, old and dirty. They all remembered running down these tunnels, out to the waiting escape shuttles. It was crazy. People running and screaming, being chased by angry bots. Zara, Finn, and Aria all left everything here on Arc 19 years ago during the robot uprising. And now they were back. For revenge. The end. Thanks for listening, friends. The website is kidstoriespodcast.com. Send all your drawings and things to kidstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Adios.